Hi, it's Katrina. This video was requested by Seth Acard via Instagram. Thanks, Seth. If you have any video requests, be sure to follow me on Instagram at Katrina Explained and send me a message. Number 10. Frau Perchta. Frau Perchta is a Christmas witch made famous by Jacob Grimm. She was once a goddess honored by pagans in the Alpine region of Germany and Austria. Just because she was a goddess, don't think she was light and ethereal. She is known by various names including Berchta or Bertha and Spinnstubenfrau or spinning room lady. It is said that she descended from the Scandinavian goddess Frigga. As a refresher, Frigga was the queen of Asgard and wife of Odin, mother of Thor. Popular tales commonly depict Frau Perchta as an ugly old woman dressed in rags with a beaked nose made of iron. Sometimes she carries a cane or conceals a long, sharp knife within her skirt. While she might look like a frail old lady, Frau Perchta is obsessed with spinning and with ensuring people's homes are clean. And she is judgy about the state of your home. She wanders around the countryside and comes around 12th night, the 12 days between Christmas and Epiphany, to make sure you have finished your spinning and weaving, especially by January 6th. If you hadn't finished and you were lazy and didn't spin your flax and had a dirty house, you're in big trouble. Plus, you'd better leave out a nice bowl of porridge for her too, or else. When she gets angry, she stomps on your fibers and sometimes even sets fire to them. Once your sewing room is on fire, she will check the rest of your house. If it's messy, she gets really irritated and will storm into your bedroom, disembowel you, and replace your organs with pebbles and straw. A severe overreaction, don't you think? Geez, I guess just spin your flax, people. It's so not worth it. Another legend goes that she flies through the night sky attended by an army of lost souls. So hopefully this motivates you to clean your house, or I guess you could scare your kids into cleaning their room. Number 9. Belsnickel. Hey everybody, it's Belsnickel, remember from The Office? He is NIGH! Belsnickel originates from southwest Germany's Palatinate region and was brought to the US by German immigrants who became known as the Pennsylvania Dutch. He's an obnoxious, sometimes masked figure who wears dirty, tattered clothing and an assortment of furs. He carries a bundle of birch twigs or a big black sack, depending on the story, and visits children in the weeks leading up to Christmas to see if they behaved, traveling from house to house and asking kids if they've been naughty or nice. Sound familiar? Impish or admirable? Ooh, too much strudel. In some legends, Belsnickel makes his rounds on Christmas night, announcing his presence by rapping on a family's windows or doors before bedtime. When the parents welcome him inside, as they're expected to do, he rewards well-behaved children with toys and goodies, while giving birch twigs to the bad kids. Belsnickel seems to be the first Christmas creature to distinguish between good and bad children, and in some stories he imposes much harsher punishments, like kidnapping bad kids and never returning them to their parents, or taking them into the woods and punishing them for their behavior. The thought of facing Belsnickel may scare naughty children, but these consequences are milder than some of the other creatures I'm going to tell you about, so hang on to your hats. Number 8. Matty Lloyd. Matty Lloyd is a Welsh tradition around Christmas and New Year's Eve that goes back maybe thousands of years. Be careful because this is the time you will find yourself staring right into a horse skull of death. Actually, it's not so bad. This tradition involves a puppeteer covered in a white sheet carrying a horse's skull or maybe a similar animal decorated with ribbons and ornaments stuck on a pole. The ghostly skull is accompanied by a group of revelers who sing and dance, parading around the neighborhood. As they make their way through town, usually people open their front doors to greet the ghastly horse and his crew, who challenge the household to a poetry battle. After this hardcore rhyming battle in the streets, if the residents are impressed, they will welcome the Matty Lloyd troupe inside for food and drink, especially drink. This celebration eventually became associated with Christmas, but its true origins are somewhat obscure and are thought to predate Christianity. The custom also varies from one location to the next throughout Wales, but is generally regarded as having pagan roots and roguish overtones, and is often associated with alcohol consumption. Hey, I don't know about you, but this one sounds the most fun. And you don't get your guts ripped out, so it's win-win. Number 7. Struwwelpeter. Struwwelpeter, or Struwwelpeter, is the main character in an 1845 children's book titled Der Struwwelpeter. His name translates to Shockheaded Peter, referencing his hair's electrocuted look, and he also had long, pointy fingers. Fun fact, Struwwelpeter's talon-like fingers and electrocuted hair are rumored to have inspired the character Edward Scissorhands. Throughout the book, children are punished for various moral offenses, and parents just shrug and say they most likely deserved it. German psychiatrist and author Heinrich Hoffmann created the book as a Christmas gift for his 3-year-old son. It's one of the first books for children that combines text and illustrations in a book format for kids. While a lack of good children's books supposedly inspired him to write the work, its content may make you wonder if perhaps Hoffmann thought his son needed some cautionary guidance. There are 10 surprisingly harsh stories in Der Struwwelpeter, which opens with a promise that good children will receive the book as a Christmas gift, while bad kids will get nothing. So there's that to look forward to. I mean, your choice. The first story is about Shockheaded Peter, the boy who's unpopular because of his poor hygiene. It warns young readers that if they don't groom themselves properly, they'll end up like Shockheaded Peter, sad and alone. Other stories include a girl who burns to death after playing with matches, a little boy whose thumbs are cut off with garden shears as a punishment for sucking on them, a child who starves to death for not eating his dinner, a boy who's carried into the air by an updraft after going outside during a storm with his umbrella, and a few more, like a rabbit that will steal your gun and hunt you down instead. Kind of like the original fairy tales before Disney got a hold of them. These are all caused by your own stupid fault. Merry Christmas. Number 6. Hans Trapp. Hans Trapp is an anti-Santa from the region along the French and German border. He was once a wealthy but greedy and heartless man, and as a result, the Catholic Church excommunicated him. After that, Hans Trapp sold his soul to the devil and was exiled to nearby forests. He disguised himself as a scarecrow and preyed on small children. Eventually, God became fed up with Hans Trapp's evil doing and killed him with a bolt of lightning one day as he prepared to devour a little boy. However, the cruel man continued roaming the planet in his scarecrow costume. To earn redemption, he teamed up with Santa for his annual visit to children around the world. While Santa gave gifts to good kids, Hans Trapp tried persuading bad children to change their ways. Hey, it beats running into Shockheaded Peter or Frau Perchta, I guess. And everyone deserves a second chance, even if they used to devour children? I don't know. Number 5. Guerrilla. Guerrilla is a monster of Icelandic folklore who lives deep in the country's mountains and only comes out once each year during the Christmas season to hunt for bad children. Tales often describe her as an ogress or giantess with a horned tail and hooves. She's the matriarch of a family of strange creatures, including her 13 sons, who are known as the Yule Lads, and has at least 2 husbands. During her annual pursuit of naughty kids, which takes place in local villages, Guerrilla throws her prey into a sack, takes them back into the mountains, and then boils them in a stew. The same fate suffered by one of her husbands, whom she simply became bored with and decided to eat. Stories of Guerrilla began as oral traditions. The first written references to the monster date back to 13th century sagas and poems, and people began associating her with Christmas during the early 19th century. Before then, Guerrilla represented the approaching darkness and snow of winter and their overtaking of the landscape. To this day, children are understandably terrified of Guerrilla. This fear was once so widespread that in 1746, the Icelandic government banned people from telling children tales about Guerrilla and other scary Christmas creatures. But the prohibitive legislation apparently didn't work, because her legend remains well known. Number 4. The Yule Lads. The Yule Lads are Guerrilla's 13 sons. In the 13 nights leading up to Christmas, they take turns visiting children, who leave one shoe on a windowsill hoping for candy. Don't worry, they aren't as evil as their mother, but there are a lot of them. In a common theme, the Yule Lads leave sweet treats for good children, while bad kids receive rotten potatoes instead. Each Yule Lad has a distinct personality and a descriptive name, some of which translate to spoon licker, stubby, pot scraper, door slammer, and sausage swiper. These names are mostly self-explanatory and convey a mischievous but not especially cruel version of the Yule Lads. Following the Icelandic government's 1746 ban on telling children stories about terrifying monsters, their previously sinister reputation transformed into one revolving more around feisty but harmless behavior. Imagine having 13 Santa Clauses! Number 3. Père Fouettard. In northern and eastern France, French-speaking Switzerland, and parts of Belgium, there's an anti-Santa of sorts called Le Père Fouettard, or Father Whipper, who travels around with a whip in hand, lashing poorly behaved kids. Stories depict him as sinister and unkempt, with a long beard and wearing a dark robe. Père Fouettard's legacy dates back to the 12th century in a story about an innkeeper or a butcher, depending on the version. Fouettard robs and murders 3 seemingly wealthy boys who are en route to a religious boarding school. To conceal the crime, the murderer and his wife chop the boys into pieces and make a stew with their remains. Upon learning the boys' fate, St. Nicholas resurrects them and Fouettard repents for his sins. As part of the deal, he joins St. Nick on his annual journey, which takes place on December 6th, doling out coal and whippings to naughty children. Who knew Santa had so many scary friends? Number 2. Bafana. Bafana is a character of Italian folklore who appears as a smiling, soot-covered, ugly old woman in a black shawl. She delivers gifts to Italy's well-behaved children every year on January 5th, known as Epiphany Eve, while leaving coal or sticks for bad kids. After her son died unexpectedly, Bafana was overwhelmed with grief and went mad. Around that time, she heard that Jesus was born and presented him with gifts. He rewarded Bafana for her thoughtful gesture by making her the mother of all of Italy's children. Instead of riding in a sleigh, like most traditional Santa-like Christmas characters, Bafana opts for her broomstick. Like Santa, she enters people's homes through their chimneys, carrying a sack full of candy and/or gifts. Families awaiting her visit typically put out a small glass of wine and a plate of local or regional food for her. Bafana is abundantly clear in letting kids know that they were bad by whacking them over the head with her broomstick rather than simply keeping a naughty or nice list. I mean, why bother? When it comes to Bafana, you have to take the good with the bad. While she's not always nice, especially to those who've rebelled against their parents throughout the year, she often sweeps a family's home before leaving. I wonder if she and Frau Perchta would get along. Number 1. Odins Arrow. Many cultures have historically marked seasonal changes and harsh winters with mythical characters that are kind of violent. One such personality is the Odins Arrow, a Christmas figure rooted in Basque folklore. The Basque people are an indigenous European ethnic group who hail from parts of Spain and France along the western foothills of the Pyrenees Mountains. According to some accounts, Odins Arrow is a member of a mythological race of Basque giants who live in the Pyrenees. He was abandoned in the woods as a newborn. A fairy found little Odins Arrow and gave him to an older couple who raised him in the forest. One day, he died while rescuing children from a burning house. As a reward for his generous deed, the fairy who had saved Odins Arrow at birth granted him with eternal life. Since then, Odins Arrow visits towns late at night every Christmas Eve and leaves gifts for children. This doesn't sound so bad, but Odins Arrow's exact origins are unclear, and he wasn't always a benevolent character. In one legend, he ran through the streets with a sickle, scaring children who disobeyed their curfew. Another story tells of Odins Arrow throwing a sickle down the chimneys of children who refused to go to bed as a warning of worse things to come, basically saying he will cut off your head or rip your guts out if he has to. At one point, he was even portrayed as a drunkard who dressed as a scarecrow and had 3 eyes. These characters are creepy. Now everybody seems to have calmed down a bit, but running around scaring children and eating people does not seem part of the holiday spirit. Thanks for watching! If you want to learn more, be sure to check out our Krampus video here on Origins Explained. Which holiday character was your favorite? Had you already heard of these? Did you grow up with these stories? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe and hit that like button if you enjoyed this video. Everybody be good! See you later! Bye!